State Senator Kerry Roberts, who will be leaving at the end of this term in office, but hopefully will find a way to find flatter routes for me in the future. Senator Kerry Roberts.
Thank you. I'm trying to think of something funny to say, Steve, and it just totally escapes me. But yes, I'm glad you didn't wear bike shorts tonight. April 1789. Anybody know what was about to take place? April 1789. The inauguration, somebody in the back said, the inauguration of George Washington. The country was excited. There was a proclamation that went out throughout the land that church bells were to ring at 9 o'clock to usher in a period of prayer, a period of consecration. Listen to the official proclamation that went out. On the morning of the day on which our illustrious president will be invested with his office, the bells will ring at 9 o'clock when the people may go up to the house of God and in a solemn manner commit the new government with its important train of consequences to the holy protection and blessings of the Most High. An early hour is prudently fixed for this peculiar act of devotion and is designed wholly for prayers. Can you imagine the government issuing a proclamation like that today? Well, on the day of April 30th, George Washington stood on the balcony of Federal Hall. He placed his hand on a Bible and he took the oath of office. He retired back into the building where he delivered his inaugural address. And then, does anybody know what they did? They walked to the church. Now, the United States Capitol at that time was not Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. didn't even exist. It was New York City. And if you're across from the New York Stock Exchange, you can see a bronze statue of George Washington, and it says, here on this site, he delivered his first inaugural address. They walked up what's Wall Street today. They walked to St. Paul's Chapel. And the first act, the first official act of our government with the President, the Senate, and the House of Representatives was to gather in that chapel and do what? Pray. To dedicate this nation to God, to consecrate this nation to God. They don't teach that in school, and that's criminal. But what's even more disheartening is if you are a student and you were assigned a paper, you were asked to write what led to the rise of America. You could write it from a political perspective. You could write it from an economic perspective. But if you wrote it from a spiritual perspective, it's very likely that that paper could be rejected. It could be downgraded. And that's wrong. And that's wrong. Last year, in Sumner County, the ACLU came in and threatened the school district in Sumner County. Just like they've done all across America, they came in with their attitude, being a bully, saying, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to sue you. We're going to cost you money. We're going to cost the taxpayers money. And it puts the school boards in a terrible position where they have to spend your money to defend themselves. And in a time of tight budgets, it's just hard to do. And so more often than not, school boards have to settle with the ACLU. I stood in Westmoreland at the side of this place where the coaches got in trouble for bowing their heads. And I vowed to the people in that stadium, I said, I'm going to go to Nashville and I'm going to try and find some legislation that will stop this type of thing from happening in other school districts in Tennessee. And so we looked through a lot of legislation. We looked at what other states had done. And just really as a matter of coincidence, or maybe just as an answer to a prayer, one of the House members came to me and he said, I want you to look at this legislation that was passed in Texas a few years ago. the Religious Viewpoints Anti-Discrimination Act. And what this act does is it requires a local education association to develop a model policy that says that any student who does a homework assignment or artwork or any type of academic activity that takes place in school cannot be discriminated against just because it's written from a spiritual or religious perspective. It gives the students the same rights coming from a religious perspective as the students from a secular perspective. Whether they have a school club, whether they want to engage in a Bible study or whatever, they get the same access to the facilities. They don't have to worry about how their schoolwork's going to be graded. They can feel free to express their religious values. It also creates a limited public forum, and that's a legal term, so that at graduations, football games, and things like that, students can get up and pray. It passed the Senate 29-0. Even the Democrats signed on board. We've got, another day or two? I'm hoping it passes the House. We're going to be done on Monday. I think we're determined not to be in the month of May. And I hope that passes on Monday. It needs to pass on Monday. Because we need to give our school boards, and we need to give our teachers, and we need to give our students the guidance that they need, the protection that they need, so when the ACLU comes calling, we can show them the door. We can tell them, you're not welcome here. This is just one of the things that I've had the opportunity to work on this year. I can't tell you what a blessing it is. And on November 6th at midnight, my term as your state senator is going to end. And then everybody says, what are you going to do next? Well, we're in District 25 now. That election is 2014. We'll see what God has in store. So maybe I'll run, maybe I won't run. But I can tell you this, if I never spend another day in office, I can't tell you what a blessing it is. It has been a wonderful experience, and I thank each one of you for the support that you've given me.
And what a great senator you've been.
Well, thank you. The story I started with, the chapel, St. Paul's Chapel. On the very ground that our nation was consecrated to God, where the leaders of our country pledged their devotion to the Almighty. On September 11th, when we watched the Twin Towers fall, that little chapel was the only building that wasn't destroyed at ground zero. You think that's a coincidence? We talk a lot about the problems of America today. Do we have economic problems? Yes. We have political problems? Yes. We have military problems? Of course. The world's a bad place. But before any other problem can be solved, we have to solve the spiritual problem. As Republicans, as people who are not ashamed of our beliefs, we need to recognize our spiritual heritage, and we need to loudly proclaim it wherever we go. And as Lee said, somehow the left has convinced us that our right to express our beliefs is somehow lesser to their rights to not hear it. And I say, let's go out and let's preach what made America great, and that's reliance on the Almighty God. Don't you agree with that? My wife said, don't preach. She said, just remember you're talking to friends. Don't get up there and start preaching. But sometimes you just get so excited about this stuff you can't help it. We have a great speaker coming up. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to be quiet. Thank you so much. This has been one of the best experiences of my life. Thank you.
sir.